America for you and me. Ain't that America? Something to see, baby. Ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah. Little pink houses for you.
Hello, I'm Goodlett Taylor. I was born here, and actually this house, which is old historic Pueblo Revival house, was one of the earliest houses built before Miami Springs was even a town. It was built in 1925, and my parents rented this house in February 4, 1934, and that's when we moved in when I was 4 years old. So this is where I lived until I got married in 1949. We moved in this house in 1934. It was on a 50-foot lot. And as I say, my parents rented it first because my father had just gotten a job at the Curtis estate as chauffeur and gardener. So naturally he knew Mrs. Curtis Wheeler, and he rented the house from her. And so we lived in it until my parents finally bought it in 1942 during the war. And then later we bought a 50-foot lot on either side, so it was a 150-foot frontage. We had our little farm here. We had our own chickens. We sold eggs. We sold frying chickens. We had our own milk goat. I had my horse barn. I had my own horse. So I loved horses. The family behind us had horses, and so I also had a little Shetland pony named Black Diamond that I learned to ride on. So I had a wonderful childhood growing up here. All the kids knew one another. We were a small town, and we all played together. We had a wonderful neighborhood here. So, as I say, this was one of the only house on the street. Anyway, down the street was Westward Drive, which was called Broadway when I was growing up. It was a drainage ditch between the Westward Drive down by the Baptist Church and down at Hammond Drive. And we had little bridges that went across every 2 blocks. So, this house went through the 1926 hurricane, and you know, it was fine. It didn't get damaged, so we was very lucky. But my dad, who went through the 26 hurricane, his rooming house collapsed on him, and he was scared to death of hurricanes after that. Anyway, this house is very, very special to me, and as I say, I'm so glad that the people that own it, Mr. and Mrs. Eden Torres, are taking good care of it. They've added on to it. They fixed up the yard, and so I'm just so thrilled that this old historic house is still here, because it's very sentimental to me, and a lot of my old historic houses are gone. All these old trees, a lot of these old trees were still here, were here when I was since the 30s. So it's changed a bit, but I still love this old house. So in other words, on the historic sites tours, it's called the H.O. Goodlett House. My father's name was Hiram Owen Goodlett. We used to tease him because his initials were Hog.
Family joke.
So when I named my kids, I made sure their initials didn't spell anything. It was my mother, Helen, me, Mary Ann, and my brother, Robert. And that's where we had a wonderful time. We had family was over here in the next block. There was an old historic house. It was a rooming house owned by the Carnifex family. And then this is, as I say, we have the High House behind us, which we're going to see shortly. That was it. We had a couple of old historic houses around the corner. You see these round openings up here? Those are called parapets, scuppers that let the water drain out from the roof. These all had a flat roof, so we had to have good drainage because that was the only thing to be concerned about. Because of the flat roofs and the parapets, if it rained hard and the scuppers were stopped up, or the canales, the big drain sites, you had to worry about the roof collapsing, so that was very scary. So we had to make sure that the drainages were open.
Did it flood during the 47 flood? Did it flood during the 47
Oh, in the 47 flood, yes, but it wasn't as bad here as some areas in Miami Springs, because we didn't have to move out. I had a little water around my horse barn, but we were lucky we didn't have to move out. Well, my mom was you know, lived here, but for a while she worked at Hubbard's Cupboard, which was a hamburger place in Hialeah. So, see, my dad worked at the Curtis estate from 1933 to 1943, and he was the gardener chauffeur. But during the war, it was hard to get gas and tires, so he left the Curtis estate and got a job at the Pan American Airways. and worked there for 30 years. You know, and a lot of people went to work at the airlines during the war, so we had a lot of people move in, and that's why I had to get rid of my horse in 1947 when they rezoned. You had to get rid of all of our livestock because then they started building houses to accommodate all these people that had moved in here after the war. And a lot of the military that trained here during the war liked it so much that after the war they came back here to live. So that's how our town grew so quickly after the war. The big building boom in the 50s. I think you've heard enough about me.